These two guys have Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackie and Judd on SKOR North and SKORNorth.com.
Reckless speculation.
Oh boy. What a time to be alive if you're a Minnesota sports fan right now, Vikings fan. This is the most up in the air the Vikings franchise has felt at key positions, right? Quarterback being number one in years and years and years. It'll all be resolved, at least the Kirk Cousins part, probably early next week. But we bring in our friend Darren Doogie Wolfson from the 5 Eyewitness News Sports Department for a scoop session, maybe a little reckless speculation. Doogie, how are you today, sir?
I am doing well, Phil. You are correct. This time as good as it gets from a fodder standpoint. To me, I mean, this is my first appearance as the calendar has flipped to March, my first appearance since last Thursday, which technically was still February. So this is the greatest sports month of the year. When looking at the calendar, it doesn't get any better. From our standpoint, it doesn't get any better than right now.
And mix in a dose of complete quarterback uncertainty for the first time since 2018, and you have a drug that is as powerful as any provided by sports. Quarterback uncertainty is the greatest thing of all time. I think it's so much fun. The Favre stuff, which personally sucked, but for me, but it was great. It was great stuff. So the fodder is just...
We may know, Judd, at this time next week. So when I join you guys next Tuesday, March 12th, I think we'll have a good amount of clarity. But for the next week, there's enough uncertainty because we know, this is a fact, the Vikings have interest in re-signing Kirk Cousins. It's not as simple as we know that Kirk is going to land elsewhere, probably Atlanta, right? But there is legit interest. So it's fascinating to see if this can play out where there is a scenario where Kirk does indeed re-sign with the Vikings.
Mm-hmm. So we'll come back to some of the Kirk stuff here, but just to move past that, if he goes to Atlanta, let's say, there's been reports about, well, the Vikings could then turn to a Baker Mayfield over here, or they could, draft, whatever it may be. But Justin Fields is one that Jeremy Fowler floated kind of in passing in this Combine recap article. He listed 4 teams that he would keep an eye on for Justin Fields, and the Vikings were one of the 4 teams. So let's actually start there. The Justin Fields sort of as a plan B if the Vikings lose out on Kirk Cousins. Could you see any world where that comes to fruition, starting next week or beyond, Doogie?
Well, I mean, in this moment, Phil, the update as of Monday night is from a very reliable source. So go ahead and aggregate this if you want. Very reliable source. I am reporting this, okay? There has not been any dialogue to this point as of Monday night between the Vikings and Bears. Now, is it possible, Phil, that changes at some point? I suppose. But in this moment, it doesn't look like Justin Fields is an option for this Vikings regime. Now, hey, Rick Spielman years ago, legit interest in Justin Fields. But this regime, I cannot connect any dots to them having legit interest in Justin Fields.
And that's the point that, it was brought up, I believe, by Fowler in that piece that the Vikings did have in his draft year an interest in trying to trade up. Obviously, the Bears jumped him. But that's the thing is, this is a very different regime. And quarterback-wise, I think it's a regime, hopefully, that you can trust way more because it's going to be led quarterback perspective-wise by Kevin O'Connell. So, yeah, that's where that sort of falls apart because it's not like the Vikings are now going back after Fields because they regret missing him. This is a completely different set of eyes. And I got to think, too, his contract is causing some problems here because if you get him and he plays well, you very quickly have to pay him, Darren. So it's not like, we get this look-see at Justin Fields for a long time. So I can see why the market is not what was expected there. There are other factors contractually that probably make teams, if the Bears are looking for a second-round pick, my guess is teams might be saying, let's do a third-round pick since we would have to pay him so quickly.
Sure. Now, ultimately, I do see him getting moved. Like, to me, Caleb Williams is going one. Now, the question is, do the Bears somehow fall in love with a Drake May or some other quarterback, move back? Washington moves up for Caleb Williams. But to me, the end game is the Bears are going to end up with one of these rookie quarterbacks and ultimately move Justin Fields. But I'm just telling you, in this moment here on March 5th, I have zero steam legitimately connecting the Vikings to Justin Fields. Some of these other names, I mean, if we're talking about bridge quarterbacks, some of these other names make way more sense. Now, Baker Mayfield, especially after the Mike Evans news, him re-signing with the Bucs, like I see Baker back with Tampa, so I don't see Baker here. I know Rich Eisen threw out Trey Lance. We do know this much. The Vikings in the past have had trade interest in Trey Lance. So this regime has had interest in Trey Lance. So we can connect those dots. Jacoby Brissett is a free agent. He's another guy at the trade deadline last year. The Vikings had some interest in. So he's another guy. The Sam Darnold steam from a few weeks ago, that is legit, especially now with Josh McCown on staff, former teammate of Sam's with the Jets. Like Sam Darnold, absolutely is a name that makes sense. Anna Wilson, like to me, Zach before Russ. Like I just don't see how Russ is a fit outside of the money, right? Like whoever gets Russ at $1.2 million, I get it from that standpoint. But from a scheme fit, I don't have any sense that Kevin O'Connell has legit interest in Russell Wilson.
No. By the way, updated Kirk Cousins odds here. According to DraftKings, this shifted last night. DraftKings put out a post on social media that the Falcons are now, for the first time, the Falcons are now the favorites to sign Kirk Cousins. The Vikings had been pretty heavy favorites, like minus 150, minus 200. And the Falcons were always near the top of the if he doesn't sign back with the Vikings list. But now, including the Vikings, DraftKings has the Falcons as the new favorites to sign Kirk at a minus 175. So take that for what it's worth, Doogie.
Well, I mean, I think that's based on the Mike Florio report from Monday night. Did he even write it, or was it just a tweet? Regardless,
he wrote it.
Pro Football Talk put out there that there are, I don't know how he framed it. Was it like the sense that there's already workings down in the Atlanta area?
Yeah, he said this. It wasn't a he was very careful to not make it sound like tampering specifically. But he wrote, "We can't get into the specifics for now, but we're getting very credible indications that Cousins is seriously considering moving his family to Atlanta, which would mean obviously that he'd be signing with the Falcons." So he's going with I'm hearing like on the family side or on the moving side that this is in motion. And obviously if it happens, then he would be signing with the Falcons.
Yes. Well, okay. The end game of him signing with the Falcons. Okay. Clearly we can see that. Heck, Phil, you first brought this up in September, right? So we've been talking Cousins to the Falcons in this space for a while. So if that's the end game, zero surprise.
People laughed, by the way. People laughed at us, dude.
They laughed.
People mocked.
Ridiculed.
That's fine. As long as they're paying attention, that's all we care about, right? They're watching, they're listening. That's all we care about. Heck, if they want to disagree all you want. I will say I did follow up on that Florio report with one person who knows Kirk incredibly well. He shot that down. Now, again, it doesn't mean that Kirk is re-signing with the Vikings or not landing in Atlanta. I'm telling you, the end game absolutely can be Kirk landing in Atlanta, but the exact verbiage that Florio used, this person shot it down. I think the extent of Kirk, planting seeds on the potential move for Minnesota is like a conversation with a realtor or the family, about potentially putting the Invergrove Heights house on the market. But I don't sense there's been all this inner working going on down in Atlanta, it's a done deal. Cousins is getting ready to uproot his family, that there's already all this groundwork laid in the Atlanta area.
So let's go through that, though, because it's very clear that this was a plant from the Cousins side, okay? So I think what we are, because you're right. A millionaire is not going to say, well, we got a lot of work to do here to move. I mean, we got to pack up the U-Haul. We got to start to
get a quote, right?
Like if they rent, you got to get the security deposit back. Julie, start cleaning now.
What if they charge us $500 for a deep clean?
I'm not changing that carpet. That carpet's fine. That carpet's fine. That carpet's absolutely great. Yeah, zero res. Call them in. But so the plant comes from the Cousins side. And I think what that was, Dukes, is very clearly one of the final attempts to tell the Vikings, we're serious. If you don't believe us, we're serious. And I do have some spies out there that tell me that that conversation might have been had between two people who were, let's just say, or at least one person very in touch with Kirk, who was probably told, hey, you might want to make a phone call and say, we're considering moving. So, like, this is all part of the very manipulative package. And I'm not even saying this in a bad way. I'm just saying, I think the Vikings are being told, okay, if you really won't move off your offer, here's what we're looking at. We're serious this time. I think that's the stage of the game as we approach Monday that we're at right now.
All right, well, that's fine. I don't sense the Vikings are budging. I really don't.
And they shouldn't. I agree with that.
They've held strong for a year.
Yeah, and I don't say this lightly, that there is a certain price point, right? To me, it comes down to, are they willing to guarantee anything in 2025, or what's the structure of 2025 look like? I'll continue to say I don't foresee any scenario where the Vikings are guaranteeing money into 2026. Okay, willing to guarantee 2024, but what does 2025 look like? But I don't think the Vikings are budging. But like perhaps Atlanta or someone else, but let's say Atlanta, okay. Are they willing to guarantee a good portion or all of 2025? That is a scenario that I can foresee.
Mm-hmm. So wild, man. Yep. We're definitely getting toward the end of Kirk Watch 2024, and maybe even Kirk Watch 6 years with the Vikings. Doogie, how would you, if he goes to Atlanta, just getting your opinion here, how would you characterize his 6 years in Minnesota? We were going over with Royce on Royce Unchained today. He's made the third most starts of any quarterback in Vikings history. He's either first or second in almost every major passing category, behind Fran Tarkenton or Tarkenton or ahead of him. So back of the football card stats, he's one of the greatest quarterbacks, maybe the second greatest quarterback in Vikings history. But he was brought here 6 years ago to push a team over the top. And in those 6 years, they've missed the playoffs 4 times. They have 1 win. How would you, if this is the end here, how would you summarize the Kirk Cousins era for the Vikings?
It's what you just said. When they signed him, the idea was for him to elevate them to a spot that they hadn't been, right? That they got so close to making the Super Bowl, that this was the final move to have them win the NFC. It just didn't happen. And I get it. There's a lot that goes into it, right? I'm not big on, a quarterback's win-loss record, right? Because a lot goes into that. But the idea was when you invest that much money, guaranteed money, the idea was with Kirk in that leadership role, in the most important position on the field, that they would win the NFC. And you mentioned, 4 of the 6 years, they don't even make the playoffs. They have 1 playoff victory that, hey, New Orleans people will continue to tell you that Kyle Rudolph pushed off, right? That maybe New Orleans should have won the game. And hey, then they laid an egg 6 days later in San Francisco, right? That was such a disappointment. But hey, yeah, clearly, what? Second best quarterback in franchise history or third, right? He's not number 1. We understand that, right? Accomplished plenty. I'm also aware of the stat that you had yesterday, Phil, from, was it Dominic Clare on Twitter about his win-loss record against teams above 500? I suppose, was that in the moment? So like when they played that team's record was above 500?
I believe it was end of season record, I think.
Okay, end of season record. Okay, and what was it, like 20 games below 500?
Like 30 games. He's like a 25% win rate. Yeah, like 16 and 47 or something.
And again, a lot goes into that. That's just not on the quarterback, right? But it is worth bringing up, right? So to me, good, but not what the ultimate goal was.
Yeah.
And the playoff thing is like, we can try and twist it and torture it. But 2018, everybody who had a key role with that team, which by the way includes Kirk Cousins, you have to make the playoffs. Like, you can't miss it. 2019, okay, something's happening here, but then 20 is a disappointment. So yeah, I think it's very fair to say this. His statistics are going to go, when he leaves, his final stats will be fantastic. The overall Cousins tenure is a disappointment. And you can blame that on 100 people. You can blame it on Kirk Cousins. But, the whole point was Rick Spielman signed him because Rick basically punted and said, I can't do this. I can't find a quarterback. I've had some bad luck. I've drafted Christian Ponder. We are going to fully guarantee a contract, which is going to be what Kirk is recalled for. We're going to fully guarantee a contract to a quarterback because this is all I can do to get a ready-made product, and it didn't work. Like, I think it's that simple. It didn't work.
You know what stinks, though? I continue to believe if he doesn't tear his Achilles on October 29th, the way they were playing, the role they were on, right? Like, they played so well that Monday night game against the Niners, then that Sunday, 6 days later, in Green Bay. Like, the NFC was pretty darn wide open. Like, I really believe they could have made some sort of run in January if Kirk doesn't get hurt. And I just wonder what sort of conversation are we having in this moment if they had won a playoff game or two in January?
Do his playoff stripes change, though, you guys? That's my question. Like, he's won one playoff game, the Saints. Okay, we could say that was great. I will also remind you, for all of those who absolve Kirk, you know, it's not Kirk's fault. He got the wrong OC, he got this or that. I also will remind you, the 2019 game, a large part of that win was Mike Zimmer's defensive game plan, which is one of the most brilliant game plans I've ever seen.
Everson Griffin, yeah.
They don't win without that game plan, okay?
Yeah.
But after what we saw with O'Connell and Kirk, which was really damn good in 2022, but they go out in the first round. Dukes, do we really think that this team would, because you're right, they could have gone to the playoffs. Do we really think it's different, though? Do we really think they make a run? Because like that's what would have changed this, in my opinion. Do we really think that they were going to get there?
I get the blowback. I understand it. I'm just saying, to me, the NFC was pretty darn wide open. Like, could they have gone to Dallas and won like Green Bay did? Yeah. Call me nuts. I think they could have. I really do. With this defense being so much better than last year. Yes. But I get it. If the blowback is Kirk would have been the old Kirk, you know, he would have curled up in the fetal position in a big moment. I get it. That they would have been one and done. I understand it if that's your point of view. I'm just saying I think there was a legit chance they could have made some sort of run.
And I'm not ripping you, Dukes, because you're just painting a what-if scenario that was potentially plausible, but you've just summarized Kirk's entire 9-year career as a starting quarterback, which is ifs, ands, buts, and theories about what could have happened with the team or with him. And at the end of the day, you look back at 9 years, and there's a lot of quarterbacks that go through adversity or an imperfect roster or situation or whatever it may be, and they have a lot more than one playoff win. And to this point, that's Kirk, man. Like, it's, oh, man, if only this coach, or if only that offensive lineman, or if the defense in these 2 seasons over here, or if the offensive coordinator there. It's like, okay, but that's great, but you're being paid to overcome a lot of those deficiencies that people are using to exonerate him. And that's my biggest problem with it.
Which is fine, Phil. I understand that. Hey, Keaton, let Scooby out.
Scoob is a big Cousins crusader. We didn't know it till today.
From school. Like, these kids have off from school. Like, the 9-year-old, off today, off Thursday, off Friday. I get it. Today, election day. His school's a polling site. I understand that. But the amount of days these kids have off from school just blows my mind. I understand what you're saying.
It's amazing. These kids taking Tuesdays off. It's just ridiculous. I mean, come on, get into the office.
How about the 12-year-old who will be 13 on Monday? Can't believe I'm going to have a teenager as of Monday, but he doesn't have school on Thursday, but has to go back on Friday. How does that make sense?
That's weird.
That just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Like, if you're off Thursday, just give them Friday off as well. So that part is baffling to me. On what you just said, Phil, that's why I get, like, you draw the line in the sand if you're the Vikings.
Right.
If this is it, that's fine. If they don't want to guarantee $1 in 2025, I understand it. That maybe it's time just to swallow on the dead cap hit. Heck, they'll never use the word rebuild, but in many ways, hit the reset button now, and you have all this cap space a year from now. Go get the rookie quarterback if it's at 11, or you move up to Tennessee at 7, or the Chargers at 5, whatever it takes. Go identify that guy. If it's J.J. McCarthy, fine. If it's Jaden Daniels, fine. If it's Drake May, fine. Go get that guy and feel like you're laying the groundwork. So a year from now, when you will have tens of millions of dollars in cap space, that's when you can really go all in on free agency.
Yeah. You have a Harrison Smith nugget that we want to get to and the rest of your scoop bag. But speaking of scoop bags, AG1 is trusted by top athletes all over the world. And one scoop mixed with your water, either in the morning or maybe in the afternoon, gives you 75 high-quality ingredients, essential vitamins, minerals, and nutrients to support daily performance and sustained energy. AG1 is a powerfully simple step you can take today for a better tomorrow. I have been hooked on AG1 products going back about 7 years, and this is the one product I would recommend to elevate your health, AG1. If you want to take ownership of your health, it starts with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3K2 and 5 for the YouTube audience of these right here, these travel packs with your first purchase. I've actually gone all in on just the travel packs because bouncing around, it's just kind of great for my lifestyle. Go to drinkag1.com/MNsports. That's drinkag1.com/MNsports and check it out. Also, maybe you're looking to move. Maybe you're a family looking to move to the southeastern region because work is taking you to a different part of the country and you need a deep clean for your home. Or it's just spring cleaning time. Zero Res comes in with a 4.9 out of 5-star rating on Google with 17,000 reviews. And you can get 3 rooms, zero resified, starting at just $119 right now, plus a free hallway when you ask for the SKOR North special. And take $75 off when you get your air ducts Zero Res clean. That's 952 Zero Res or ZeroResMinnesota.com. Say you want the SKOR North special. Spell it forward or backwards. It spells the same. Zero Res. Okay, Dukes. Harrison Smith kind of hinted at maybe retiring at the end of the season. He's a pretty quiet guy. What are you hearing on that front? Is 2 questions. Is he going to retire? And B, is there a chance he still plays for the Vikings in 2024?
All right, on number 1, at this point, I'll be surprised. All right, so let's go on the idea that he's playing a 13th season. Well, we know it can't be at his current number. Cap hit of what? Nearly $20 million, base salary of 14 and change. For him to play for the Vikings, a 13th year with the Vikings in 2024, we know he'll have to take another pay cut. He took a pretty decent pay cut a year ago. To me, he'd have to take even a bigger pay cut. So that remains to be seen how that plays out. But at this point, I'm just saying I'll be pretty darn surprised if he just walks away.
Do you think that he would? So if the Vikings are willing to bring him back on a pay cut, restructure contract, do you think he would balk at that? Because I do, to your point, he took one last year. Seems like he likes being here. Seems like the type of guy that I'm not sure he's driven by the cash entirely. So if he does play year 13, and if the Vikings say, okay, dude, you come back at our price, do you think there's any chance that he would say, no, just cut me and I'll leave here after 12 years?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily dismiss that.
Okay.
Like, Judd, I point back to that loss against the Bears at US Bank Stadium. Being in that locker room post-game, I've never seen Harrison Smith so dejected. And yeah, not one to be chasing the cash, but chasing a ring, wanting to win at the highest level possible. And truly, is he going to do that here in 2024? So I wouldn't dismiss that. Yes, does love it here. Loves playing for Brian Flores. Brian Flores loves him. But can he win at the level he wants to win at here in 2024? That to me is the question to ponder, not whether he's going to retire or not.
Good Interesting. What else is left in your scoop bag there, Dukes? What else should we get to?
Well, I mean, we can go any number of directions. Continuing the football dialogue, Tyler Nubin, Gopher safety, the clear-cut number 1 Gophers NFL draft prospect. Sounds like he'll run his 40 at the Pro Day on the University of Minnesota campus March 14th. So I don't think, I guess I should have double-checked this, but I don't believe he did some on-field work. But remember, I noted a few months ago he had some knee cleanup surgery, didn't play in the Gophers bowl game, is doing well now, but is able to buy himself a few more days, so can run that 40 on March 14th. He ended up meeting in Indianapolis with the Bears, the Eagles. I have the full list somewhere, but those were 2 teams that I know he met with. Still think it's pointing to him being like a top 50 pick. Maybe not first round, but should go right in the middle of the second round or so. Very intriguing draft prospect, Tyler Nubin of the Gophers. The Orlando Magic had a scout at the barn over the weekend. for the Gophers Penn State game. I've been asked if TJ Warren is still signing with the Wolves. Sounds like he'll undergo a physical sometime in the next 48 hours. I can see that deal being signed later this week. The Wolves next play, Thursday in Indiana, then play Friday in Cleveland. No Donovan Mitchell for the Cavs on Friday, so the Wolves catch another break. I still think it'll come down, Phil, to those 3 games against the Denver Nuggets. So as we look at the standings right now, Denver playing the best of anybody in the league post All-Star break. And I promise you, I know this for a fact, those Denver Nuggets are well aware of the chatter here about how the Wolves played them so well in the first round of last year, how the Wolves spanked them in November, right? The Nuggets are going to be uber motivated for those 3 matchups. So it looks like the 1 seed in the Western Conference could absolutely come down to those 3 head-to-head meetings, Wolves and Nuggets. But I had a nice conversation with Glenn Taylor on Friday. He made it very clear, Phil, like them being the 1 is a big deal. Like, I don't know how much Chris Finch and others are verbalizing it, but to Glenn, like them being the 1 seed, they value, and they should, home court advantage that much, but that absolutely is the goal, to be the 1 seed in the Western Conference. A few other notes from Glenn. He said the tarps will be coming off the upper reaches of Target Center before the playoffs. He didn't give me an exact date, but the plan is to sell all those seats at some point here before the end of the regular season, then into the playoffs. And hey, I get it. There's been, some confusion on this sale process. Glenn Taylor told me he was led to believe that Mark Lowry and Alex Rodriguez were set to close on February 28th or 29th. Now, the official paperwork does allow 60 to 90 days. Glenn was under the impression it would be closer to the 60 days from when they exercised the option back in December. Okay, but they do have the option to extend it to 90 days. I have always maintained, I have always said, I see it getting to the finish line. That to me isn't the question. Here is the question to ponder on this one. Will the NBA approve the sale to Mark Lowry and Alex Rodriguez? And hey, they very well may, but it's something that people have brought up to me, that in the end, okay, they'll get the number of investors they need. They'll get this thing to the finish line from a financial standpoint. But when it comes down to the NBA needing to approve this transaction, ultimately, will the NBA say yes? Just something to think about.
And why would they say no? Just lack of finances, bad structure with the group? What are the reasons why they would maybe say no?
Exactly. Right? Like, just this whole process, the amount of investors, who's investing what, are there some silent partners? Plus, there's still some questions about Glenn. I mean, I highly implore you to listen to the conversation. It's not on the SKOR North podcast page on the Scoop, although maybe I can do a new Scoop and add the audio there, but it's on the KSTP Sports page, my entire 23-minute conversation with Glenn, and go to like the 14.5-minute mark, listen from that point until about the 22.5-minute mark, and just read between the lines. And I just wonder, with Glenn's influence, just a lot of things. I'm just telling you, it's worth thinking about. Is it 100%? I'm saying they may, but I don't know if I can sit here and tell you with 100% certainty that the NBA will absolutely approve the sale.
Interesting. Great stuff here, and plenty more in the next several days. We've got Reckless Speculation Thursday as well with Doogie.
And one more, the Twins are open-minded to adding a starting pitcher, but only on a, sounds like, non-roster type deal. So an NRI deal, non-roster invite, not a 40-man type move. Now, maybe that can change, but right now there's been some chatter about, if they're going to do something, it would only be on an NRI deal.
Okay. Well, once DeSclafani's elbow needs to go under the knife, they may need to consider. Now, he's out there doing.
I'd rather have Louis Varland.
Great bullpen yesterday.
He's great. Yeah,
give me Louis. Louis's my guy, but after watching Louis and Mashdown and Savage in January, he looked so darn good. The numbers so far, for whatever it's worth in spring training, really good. Like, instead of signing some guy to an NRI type deal, just give that 5th job to Louis Varland. But at this point, it looks like Louis will be the opening day starter for the Saints.
Darren Doogie Wolfson. Some scoops, some speculation,
some coffee, some Scooby
coffee, some barking,
coffee.
some kids home from school.
Fix that.
We're going to go hit right now, though. So, hey, whatever. Got to keep them entertained. Got to get them out of the house. Too much screen time.
All right, Dukes. We'll see you
All right,
on
see you, boys.
Thursday, sir. There
All
he
right,
is.
bye-bye.
Darren Doogie Wolfson. All right, boys. Buckle up. Buckle up, Vikings fans. This is
No
going
on
to get
Justin Fields.
really interesting.
So I take away from today's scoop session a no on Justin Fields.
It's a no right now, but once one door closes, other doors
I'm
may
buying.
open.
I'm buying the no. I'm buying the no. I told you before.
I think
I
you're
don't
right.
see it.
Although I will say this, it sounds like if you look at like fifth-year options the last few years in the NFL,
Yep.
the NFL has been strategically ramping up the price on fifth-year options because they want players, and the NFLPA wants players to hit free agency or get contracts before the fifth-year option.
Mm-hmm.
So drafting a quarterback in the first round is not quite as valuable as it was maybe 5 or 6 years ago. So I wonder, like, if it comes down to, would you use a second-round pick on a Bo Nix, or could you get a Justin Fields for like a third or a fourth? The Vikings don't have a third this year. And then you get a deal done that's maybe it's like a 3-year deal that's under market value. I don't think it's right for the Vikings, but I could see some teams debating, you know what, we could probably make this work.
But if Justin Fields comes in and has a good year, he now is in a position to say, hold on a second, I just had a great year. I want my contract. Like, and the fifth-year options go up, but the nice thing about them is you still have control.
Yep.
So, like, you don't lose control. It's like you've got the ability now to have more runway. You know what? Justin Jefferson is a perfect example. Like, he's going to get an extension soon, but you've got the runway now to at least retain his rights. So that's why I feel like Fields is in a weird predicament, because I feel like if he doesn't play well, then you're sort of just like, okay, he didn't play well. What now? Do we keep extending him with cheaper contracts? And if he plays well, he's like, oh, show me the money, man.
Yeah.
Show me the money.
Yep. So, all right, Purple Daily is all over the latest developments today. So check out the Purple Daily podcast feed and YouTube channel. And also, we launched a third YouTube channel. That's right. We have a scoop right here. Old Macadac and the Dexter. We launched the SKOR North Twin Show YouTube channel. And starting next week, all full episodes of the SKOR North Twin Show will be available only on that YouTube channel and Apple and Spotify. So if you are into the SKOR North Twin Show, be sure to do a search for the SKOR North Twin Show on YouTube, or you can find a link on the homepage of the SKOR North and Purple Daily YouTube channels and just click on it, click that subscribe button, and you'll start seeing full episodes here next week of the SKOR North Twin Show there. So, all right, that's a wrap on this scoop session. Minnesota Sports with Mackey and Judd.